Okay, let's unpack this. We've been tracking major urban changes for a while now, but the sources we have today are describing a transformation in Montreal that is, well, it's shifting the entire map of the city.
It really is. We're not talking about a slow evolution here.
No, this is a deliberate, large-scale, and federally led initiative. It's set to completely redefine key sectors for the next decade.
That's the core insight here. This is all driven by federal momentum, specifically through the Canada Lands Company, or the CLC. And they're not just, participating in development, they're becoming the dominant force.
The CLC is leading what the sources are calling an urban push, and it covers 4 major confirmed projects. If you look at the total numbers involved in this stack of material, it really starts to hit home.
Oh, absolutely. We're analyzing plans for over 13,500 new units, and they're all announced right on the edge of the downtown core and on the South Shore.
13,500. That's a city within a city.
It is. And if you factor in the land acquisition, the infrastructure, the construction across all these sites, the total investment is estimated to be over $5.5 billion over the next 10 years.
Wow.
It's an enormous economic commitment, and, it fundamentally changes who calls the shots in Montreal's redevelopment.
So here's our mission for this deep dive, and for you listening. We're going into these sources to analyze the scale and the scope of these sites. We need to go beyond just the unit counts and focus on the practical economic and social impacts.
Right.
Our goal is to understand how this ambitious effort represents an actual mending of the urban fabric for a city that, let's be honest, desperately needs both housing and connectivity.
Exactly. The CLC's vision here is intentionally focused on creating dense, mixed-use neighborhoods. This isn't just about volume. It's about tying these new communities right into public transport, establishing robust active mobility networks. They're leveraging federal land to mandate social goals.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. The geographic and historical context that really sparked this whole thing.
Okay.
The Bridge-Bonaventure sector. This is the catalyst for the entire vision.
It's a huge territory spanning 2.3 square kilometers, and it's a critical gateway to the city. What's so fascinating is why it remained undeveloped for so long.
Right. It was always seen as this residential no man's land.
Completely, you had the St. Lawrence River on one side, the Lachine Canal on the other, and just years of heavy industry, rail yards, elevated highways. It created these enormous physical and, psychological barriers. It was totally cut off from downtown.
So the vision now is one of intelligent densification. They're trying to manually undo that history of isolation through planning.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate goal for how people will actually live there?
The outcome they're aiming for is a genuine 15-minute neighborhood.
I've heard that term a lot.
It's a concept where residents can access everything they need: work, shopping, services, green space, all within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. And this is all fundamentally rooted in transit-oriented development, or TOD.
For those of us who aren't city planners, what does TOD mean in this specific context?
It means every single piece of this development is explicitly planned around major transit hubs. The whole point is to maximize accessibility while minimizing our reliance on cars.
So for Bridge-Bonaventure, that means?
It means they're leveraging the forthcoming REM station, the new light rail network, and integrating major new bike paths to ensure high-frequency and easy connectivity to the rest of the city.
That really sets the social tone for the whole initiative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even before we get to the 4 big projects, the vision for Bridge-Bonaventure alone includes building 2,000 affordable and social housing units right next to downtown.
It's a massive commitment just to launch the transformation of this historically isolated area. It really demonstrates the seriousness of their intent to mend that urban fabric, to replace that industrial isolation with diverse, connected, and housing-rich communities.
Speaking of connectivity, let's transition to the heavy hitters. These 4 projects led by the CLC are the engines that are supposed to turn this planning vision into reality.
And these 4 sites are strategically placed. They're designed to maximize both urban and suburban impact, stretching from the river's edge all the way to the South Shore.
Let's start with the one that was most recently added, the one that truly ratcheted up the scale of this whole effort, Cité-du-Havre.
We could call this the new urban giant. It's an exceptional site, 600,000 square feet, strategically nestled right between the St. Lawrence River and the history of Old Montreal.
That's prime real estate.
It is. It sits right in that nexus where architecture has often been experimental. I mean, you can even think of its location near Habitat 67 as a symbolic link to past, ambitious, even utopian housing projects.
And the volume planned here is substantial. We're talking about high-density development estimated between, what, 2,600 and 3,000 housing units for that single parcel.
That's right. And what gives the CLC, this federal entity, so much leverage here, it really comes down to land ownership. They acquired this land just last December for nearly $38 million from an entity of the CDPQ.
So because the CLC owns the land, it can dictate the terms.
Exactly. They can bypass some of the typical municipal resistance or zoning inertia that plagues private projects. They've confirmed the land is zoned to welcome a diversity of families, which means they can mandate apartment types that accommodate families, not just tiny condo units.
Okay, let's pivot from that central site and talk about the one that seems most focused on cultural integration, Basin-Wellington. This project is physically knitting together Griffintown and Point St. Charles, so it connects back to that initial Bridge-Bonaventure vision.
It's a vital connector, planned for about 2,800 units. But what truly defines Basin-Wellington is its unique social and creative vocation. This is where the CLC's leverage really shows itself.
How so?
50% of the housing here is designated off-market.
50% off-market. That's an impressive figure, but for the listener, we need to clarify. What does off-market actually mean when you're talking about housing units?
That's a crucial distinction. When the sources say off-market, they mean these units are legally and permanently removed from the private speculative real estate cycle.
So they can't be flipped for a profit.
Never. This is usually done by selling the land or the completed units to nonprofit housing corporations, housing cooperatives, or community land trusts. The goal is to guarantee permanent affordability and ensure these units serve social or low-cost housing needs forever, not just offer a temporary subsidized rent.
So it's a commitment that transcends the normal market dynamics.
Yeah.
And beyond the housing, it integrates an artisan's quarter. Is that a deliberate move to counteract the usual gentrification that follows these huge developments?
Absolutely. The Artisans' Quarter is a targeted effort to maintain craft and light manufacturing activity, preserving the creative history of that area. They're also planning direct access to the banks for river tourism, which signals this isn't just a dormitory neighborhood, it's meant to be an active, mixed-use community.
Okay, now we cross the river to the heavyweight of the entire list. Let's talk about Pointe-de-Longueuil.
This is the density play for the South Shore, and it's the most massive single site on the list, planned for over 5,000 units.
5,000 units. That is an enormous figure. What's the strategic purpose behind placing that kind of volume there?
The purpose is to create a true secondary downtown hub for the entire region. The sources actually frame it as an ultimate transit-oriented development hinge.
An ultimate TOD.
It's designed as a multimodal center, connected directly to the Longueuil Metro, active transport networks, and easy access to the river shuttle. They are building a dense urban core where one didn't really exist before.
But when you throw out a number like 5,000 new units in one area, and we factor in the current supply chain issues, the labor shortages facing construction everywhere, are the sources suggesting this 10-year timeline for delivery is truly realistic? Or is that figure more aspirational, pending better economic wins?
That's the perfect question, and it's one the sources implicitly raise. The $5.5 billion investment suggests serious intent, but the timeline is aggressive. Success hinges entirely on economic collaboration. To make it viable, the CLC has to attract private developers for the market rate portions, and the scale of the social commitment is immense.
And what's the social commitment there?
20% of those 5,000 units, so 1,000 units, are committed to being non-market.
1,000. Okay. So we have these huge scale projects, and then we have the final one, which the sources describe as a surgical approach. Côte-de-Liesse in the Saint-Laurent borough. Much smaller, about 700 units on surplus federal land.
This one is fascinating because its objective is explicitly social and localized. It uses that small scale as leverage for social innovation. 50% off-market housing, specifically intended to counter gentrification in an already established community.
And you mentioned the planning involves heritage preservation, densification connected to the REM, and creating what they call a cool island. What exactly does a cool island mean in an urban planning context? Is that just a buzzword for a park?
It's a bit more targeted than just a park. A cool island, or an urban microclimate island, refers to strategic planning that uses significant green space, reflective surfaces, and tree canopy to actively reduce the urban heat island effect.
So it actually makes the local area cooler.
Measurably cooler and more comfortable in the summer. It's a health and resiliency objective built right into the project from day one.
This is where it all comes together then, the cumulative impact. We've gone through 4 sites, adding up to over 13,500 units. The sources confirm that the addition of Cité-du-Havre in particular solidified this real estate offensive at an absolutely massive scale.
Let's focus on that social impact for a second. If we apply the specific ratios we discussed, 50% off market at Bassin-Wellington and Côte-de-Liesse, 20% at Pointe-de-Longueuil, plus the 2,000 units at Bridge-Bonaventure, the sources conservatively estimate that the total number of affordable and non-market units removed from speculation will be between 4,500 and 5,000 units.
That is the crucial counterweight to the market pressure. Nearly 5,000 units permanently protected for cooperatives, nonprofits, or social housing.
It changes the conversation. It's not just about supply volume anymore. It's about affordable supply volume. Then you look at the economics. That $5.5 billion is the combined value of the development, the land, the complex infrastructure needed to undo that historical isolation, and of course the construction itself.
And what's the long-term municipal payoff? Because cities need that tax revenue to fund services.
Yeah.
What are these new neighborhoods expected to generate once they're complete?
The municipal payoff is substantial. Once fully built and occupied, these new neighborhoods are expected to generate annual property tax revenues of more than $45 million from Montreal and Longueuil combined.
That's significant.
It is. That revenue is essential, but it needs to be weighed against the significant upfront cost of developing the infrastructure needed to support these high-density areas.
So if we step back, what does this aggressive push ultimately mean for the political and urban status quo in the Montreal region?
It means the federal government, operating through the Canada Lands Company, has really solidified its position as the main dominant actor in the city's urban redevelopment strategy. They are using their federal land bank as a tool to dictate terms, specifically high densification and significant affordability ratios, that local municipalities often struggle to enforce against private developers.
The CLC is forcing a path forward.
They are.
So we've given you a comprehensive view of the scale of this federal commitment, the intelligent densification, the focus on transit-oriented development, and the significant affordable housing ratios embedded in these projects. You now understand the complexity of the plan.
And the sources are very clear on this next point. The challenge is no longer about the announcement or the political will. The colossal, practical challenge ahead will be turning these detailed, multi-billion-dollar plans into actual construction sites, especially given the current global economic constraints on labor and materials.
That economic context is the ultimate test of execution.
Which raises the single most important question for you to consider as you watch this transformation unfold. With costs rising and timelines stretching, how effectively can these public-led efforts guarantee that the promised 4,500 to 5,000 share of affordable housing is actually delivered? It is that specific number, the non-market commitment, that is the real measure of success we need to watch as this huge investment moves from blueprint to brick and mortar.